Do I necessarily want to be in that position? Probably not. Would I want to put a child of mine in that position? Would I wish that on any child, to be fair? Probably not. But, you know, there are circumstances around that, like, you know, mothers and fathers not being present in people's lives. And I would hate that a child of mine or a child of somebody that I knew or whatever else had to grow up with their parent not being around or not wanting to be involved, or there was such animosity between two parents that it was like, you know, the kid is almost this like weapon in the middle. I've got a friend at the moment that fights tooth and nail to see their son. And do I know the ins and outs of what happened with him and the child's mother? No, I don't. And I've not asked, and I feel like it's not something that's my place to start delving into. But do I know that he wants to see his kid? Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Is he a parent that can't wait till the next time he sees his kid and values every second he spends with his child? 100%. Is there enough animosity and enough resentment and enough tension between him and the mother of his child that then creates this hurdle to him seeing his kid? Oh, for sure. And, you know, again, it's like, was that the right person? And while I'm sure he would never say, do you know what, I wish I didn't have my kid with this person, because you've got your child.
Yeah.
And even if there was an opportunity to go back and redo it, knowing how they feel about their kid and all the rest of it, I'm sure they would say I wouldn't do things differently. But if you've got the opportunity to really nail down if this is the right person for you, and of course shit can change and people can fall out and things happen, etc. But would I want to feel that I'm massively comfortable with that person, that having that ultimate connection, because you are then part of that person's life, good or bad, for the duration of your life while your child exists? You know, your kid could be 30 years old getting married. You and the mother or the father, in whatever way around it is, of that child, then suddenly has to coexist in this. And a lot of the times, or sometimes, that doesn't work. Other times people can put their differences aside for those occasions, great. But, you know, I would want to feel like I've met somebody that, while that potentially might happen, isn't this like underlying fear that
I hear you.
You know, we get on well as people, but the dynamic that a child brings, do I think that would do our relationship any good? Do I think that's going to strengthen our relationship? If I don't feel like that with that person, would I want to risk having a child with them? I'm very sort of like, you might say like heartless about this, but
not even heartless. It's not heartless. Sense. I think it's like it makes sense to me, definitely. What I will say though is that I don't know whether fear is the right word, whether it's fear of getting it wrong, whether there's an element of I don't know, pessimism.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I would love to know why there is that kind of level of like where it's not like positive language, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where you're not saying I am, for example, the financial situation. You're not saying my goal is not even just to have a child, but just my goal is to get myself into that situation in order, and then when that happens, then I will do X, Y, and Z. Or do you get what I mean? Do you get what I mean? I feel like there's this underlying idea that you believe that is something that is difficult to achieve. Whether it's difficult to achieve in general or whether it's difficult to achieve for you personally, I don't know.
So I've dealt with like, and it really has like put a really different perspective on my outlook on things. Like the last 2.5 years of my life have been shit.
Okay.
Like genuinely, like I don't want to bring the conversation down, and I don't want to make anybody feel bad.
Forget anybody else, bro.
And I'm definitely not looking for like sympathy when I say this, but I hit my lowest point in January to the point where I was genuinely ready to end my own life.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for my mate Russ, who randomly was like, mate, I'm bringing you around some food and some fags, like out of the blue. And I was like, mate, don't worry about it, just leave it. Like I was at the point where I wrote out messages on my phone to send to people. My plan was set. That was the night, genuinely, that I was gonna take my final steps, take my final breath. Like I had come to terms with, this is what I'm gonna do. And if it wasn't for him turning up,
right,
and he knows this, and I've said to him like before, like, mate, you genuinely saved my life. Like, I for sure would not be sitting having this conversation with you now. But that moment of pause to go, actually, you know, I am hungry. I'm going to sit and eat this food. And you almost then think, well, do I, like, then it's like other things. I'm like, fuck, I'm tired. Like, I want to get some sleep. Suddenly, all those things that I pushed to one side and thought, you know, maybe in the back of my mind, and like my body might be going, you know, belly rumbling, you're hungry. It's like, doesn't fucking matter, because do you know what? In a matter of hours, it ain't gonna matter anymore. And so suddenly, like, it was almost like being brought back into, I am alive. Yeah. Like, I have these feelings, like, whether it's being hungry or being tired or whatever else. Yeah. Suddenly these things matter a little bit because I can smell hot food, and it's like, well, I'll eat that, like, because I am hungry. Yeah. And you know, to the point where I'd worked out how many cigarettes I had left, and I don't want to get too morbid, but me ending my life didn't involve being at home, which can sound selfish, but I wanted a way of knowing for sure that, or as sure as you can be, that when I go through with it, the chances of survival were very fucking low. So it was like, but I know how many fags I've got left for the journey that I need to take. This is how long it's going to take me to get there. I'm going to have this many fags on the walk, then I'm going to have one fag before the end. Like, I've wrote out messages, like all of that stuff. So coming out of that, it's difficult to say, do you know what, I want to set goals or look at things in a positive light. Would I love to be able to sit here and say, Chuck, man, like, my goal this year is to do this and to get this and have that and whatever else. Yeah. Yeah, but it's getting past the things that make me feel that the way I do now. And while clearly I can sit here and have a conversation with you about stuff and things, it's still a constant thing. One, it's better than it was. Would I say that I'm back to normal? No, not at all. Yeah. And it's like, how do you even remotely consider, and this goes back to what I said about, like, you know, the mental state of, like, having a child. Yeah. How do you remotely consider bringing life into this world where 6 months ago I genuinely 100% was committed to ending my own? No, I hear you. I hear that. So, you know, no, I hear you. And that's a very kind of, I want to say sensible, but I'll use sensible because I can't think of a better word. But that's a sensible way to view things. Yeah. So this is all kind of like, I mean, you're my mate, so that's like information that is just like, what the like, jeez. Yeah. All right. So I don't know how deep you want to go into, but
I'm gonna ask anyway.
Ask away, mate.
I'm gonna ask anyway.
Ask away.
Why?
Why?
Is there a why? Is there
Oh,
are there specific whys, or is it because what I understand of depression, what I've heard and read and all these kind of things, is that it doesn't always have to be a specific incident or a specific I don't know historical thing that has happened. But is there a why?
For sure. I mean, there isn't a why. There's multiple whys.
Okay, so there are whys.
So this, and do you know what? Before my marriage ended, would I have ever considered remotely my mental health?
Right.
Not to say that I'm oblivious to the fact that other people, whatever, but for me personally, it never been an issue. But my marriage ending hit me hard. Because at the end of the day, I didn't want her to leave. Like, you know, even to the point the day she left, I wrote her a letter and I stood just over there, hoping that she would read that before she like fully left and realise that I still want to be with her and that she'd come back. Clearly she didn't. You know, and there's no resentment there. She'd made her decision, etc. And then, like, literally a week later, lost my job. Like, got made redundant. And it's like, right, cool. So before I've really had any opportunity to deal with the emotional and mental impact of an 8-year relationship and a marriage ending, now I'm jobless. And it's like, fuck, I've got to deal with this. Then I got a job working at Which, where I met you, my friend.
Yes.
What a glorious time that was.
Glorious time.
Glorious time. Then after that, it was like, right, I'm in a fuckload of debt. Like, you know, my credit rating was always really fucking good. So if we have a credit card or a loan or whatever else, which I know like people shouldn't do, but you do anyway, always went in my name. So she walks out, I'm now down to suddenly no income, then less income than what I was personally on beforehand when I went to, you know, when I went to work at Which, I took about a $4,000 pay cut. The next step in that journey was declare myself bankrupt. So that has a massive impact on everything. Like, your bankruptcy lasts for 1 year, but then it remains on your credit file for another 5. So I declared myself bankrupt in June of 2018. So I've done 2 years. I've got another 4 to go. If I suddenly lost this roof over my head, my landlord's pretty good. But if for whatever reason they decided to sell this flat, can I walk into a letting agent and say, I want to rent somewhere? Even if I had a deposit? Whatever else? Absolutely, computer says no. Like, you know, so it's like, right, well, fuck, this now has a massive impact on the next 6 years of my life. Then, you know, I'd started to sort of meet people, like women, and some of those which I thought genuinely were good, Blackpool. You remember Blackpool. You know, that like is another thing that was shit, and I ended up probably having like my first sort of breakdown as such, like July, August, I think. I mean, you must remember there was about 2 weeks at work that I just wasn't in. And, you know, luckily, which was good, and like sort of people like rallied around and that. And after a little while, I managed to sort of drag myself out of it. I say I dragged myself out, other people sort of dragged me. I don't think I had much of a choice in the matter, to be fair. And then I got sort of ill around like the end of September, beginning of October. Or no, the end of October, it's just before Halloween. And like when you're ill, you feel like shit anyway. And so that then allowed all that other stuff to come creeping back in. Obviously, we then got made redundant from Which because they moved. So again, it was like, you know, trying to find another job. I spent 10 months looking for a job. Genuinely 10 months. And in that time, like, I was shit. Like, You know, even small things, stuff that probably now I'd have to really think about to like pinpoint.
Yeah.
But it's
all
like
just even if it's one grain of sand, there's enough grain of sand is going to crush you.
It's a cumulative effect of all this stuff that I've not sat and dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to like last Christmas, and I fucking hate Christmas as it is. That could do one. But yeah, like certain things happened over Christmas that really was like almost the final nail in the coffin without sounding too morbid.
Yeah.
Then that really affected me, like really badly, to the point that I wasn't going into work. I was trying to explain to work what the situation was.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, as much as they can be understanding, there comes a point where they go, we've got to put our business first.
Yeah.
They then let me go. And so then I'm back to, then I've not got, and that was it. I was like, I physically, mentally cannot take anymore. Like, I got to a point where I was like, do you know what, like, everything had got on top of me.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I then went through a process, semi-consciously, I think, of sort of distancing myself from people, pushing people away, not wanting to let people in, not replying to messages, not speaking to people, because that then creates...
You're getting the virtual finger here from me just for...
Yeah, I know. But it's almost at the point where it's like, I don't want to speak to people.
Yeah, no,
because people are going to say, damn, what's wrong? And I've then got to talk about it. While I'm sat here talking about it with you now, that's like antidepressants and counselling and like support from other people, I know, ironic, that have got me to the point where I can sit here and have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
But at the time, it's like, I just don't want, I felt like I didn't want to burden anyone else with my troubles.
Mm-hmm.
And when it gets to the point where you think, I can't take anymore, and yes, you can ask for help, but that's probably the hardest thing to do. You know, almost making a decision to say, I'm not going to live anymore, was easier than saying to people, I need help.
Alright, can I ask you a question though, before you go further, right?
Yeah.
That, because I feel like that's a huge component in, I don't know, I don't really like, mental health just sounds bloody too broad a term. Yeah. But in that, let's say depression or the feelings that you're describing, I feel like the idea of not wanting to burden people with your stress and your issues and your challenges, I feel like is a huge contributing factor to that slippery slope of kind of feeling helpless. Yeah. Right? And I think I'd love to know where you think that comes from, because I feel like we've all kind of got that element in us of you care about people, so you don't want to hurt people, or you don't want to make anyone's life harder in a way that you can, if you can stop that from happening by not saying anything, then you will. But I think there's definitely a conversation to be had around where does that feeling of almost other people's well-being being more important than our own well-being, where does that come from? If you was to look, because you know what I mean, you're pretty insightful, and so you think about stuff. So what I don't know if you thought about it before, but where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. Like, I say I don't know. I think because I am, as much as, you know, we've like had like, you know, I wouldn't say arguments and stuff, but we can like, you know, we can have a banter back and forth and all the rest. You know, he might call me an arsehole sometimes, all the rest of it. But, you know, it's always from a place of love. Definitely. Like, because I am, and I feel like I'm not trying to pick myself up here, but like, I would class myself as a genuinely compassionate, caring person.
Mm-hmm.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like, I want the best for people.
Can definitely vouch for that.
You know, friends, family, even people that I don't really know. Like, you know, even to the point where like I've spoken to people on like Tinder and shit, and they're like, oh, I've like met somebody else. And while the stance is you could be pissed off about that, or my answer is I genuinely hope things work out. I would want something, even if I don't fucking know you, I would want people to be happy. And I feel like turning around to people and saying, this is all my shit, takes away from other people's happiness. Now I know the flip side of that is ending your life also doesn't make people happy. But there is to some degree a grieving process that you go through when somebody dies. Like I've done it, like my Auntie Sil, for instance, that one was my absolute fucking rock. But you then go back to living your life to almost a similar degree that you was living it at before. While that person is lost and they're no longer here, you go, there are times where you think, oh, do you know, I really fucking miss them, and it's like sad, and you know, anniversaries or like birthdays or whatever else, those things come around. But for the most part, you go back to normal life.
Can I throw something in there before you move on?
Sure, yeah.
Right? That is, I don't know how your Auntie Sil died. Sorry, condolences and all of that. I don't know how she died. But what I will say is that I think that when somebody that you care about takes their life, and whether you explained, I don't know, what, as you said, you wrote these texts out and all of these things, whether you explain it in a way that tries to articulate that they can absolve themselves of having any guilt, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like it's different when there is that level of guilt of not you being necessarily the cause of them taking the life, but of you either not being aware
or not
that you
like
could have you've done enough, or that you feel like that person doesn't feel like they can offload with you.
Yeah.
I feel like there is that element of blame that the people that you care about will place on themselves, and that pain is not something that you just leave.
No, and you know what? Like, and it's funny because obviously, you know, I said that I'm having counselling and stuff, and like that was one of the things that she said to me.
Okay.
But at the time, when you're in that mindset,
no, of course,
is that something that, you know, I remember, and I think I only ever, like, in the message that I wrote to my parents, I'd said, you know, I don't want you to feel like guilty or that you are responsible or that you couldn't or didn't do enough, because it's not, you know, not the case at all. But yeah, you know, I just didn't see any other way out, and it's hard, like, you know, to feel like that's your option.
Yeah.
To even get to a point where you even remotely consider that that's an option. To then come back from that, you know, there are times, you know, if I'm being brutally honest, only probably about a month or so ago, not to the same degree by any stretch of the imagination, but I felt like I was somewhat back in that place.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's like trying to like, I wanted to pull myself out of that, but at the time, I could have very easily let that consume me.
Yeah.
And I suppose consuming is the right word. It becomes consuming.
Yeah.
Every waking moment that I had for days leading up to the point where I finally made that decision, almost every waking moment was, I could end my life. This is a clean, as clean as somebody dying can be. For me personally, like in my situation, a clean way to stop all the shit. Like, and it sounds really bad, and you know, and I think in some respects, actually going through with it is an incredibly hard thing. And while some people might say that you're a coward or whatever else, I think to actually have the courage to do something, whatever it may be that you do, is going to cause your life to end, you know, is definitely difficult. So it wasn't a decision taken lightly, but when that is, you know, when you think, do you know what, that's the easy way, dealing with and talking through and resolving my issues, at that point it felt like it's going to take more time, effort, energy, heartache, tears, whatever else, than I could give, or gave enough of a fuck about to give. When you get to that point, it's like taking that step, doing that act, doing whatever, is an easy option. The actual act of it probably isn't, but
I hear exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, to get to that point, it is. You just think, I don't have to worry anymore. I don't have to stress. I don't have to deal with. I don't have to constantly go through the battle in my mind, the way that makes me feel physically, mentally, emotionally. Like, you know, not for me. I couldn't sleep. Like, I would go to sleep at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning because at that point my body is exhausted, and it's like I can't. Even though my mind's still racing,
your body just
gives up, and like I'll have 2 or 3 hours and I'll be awake again, and I'll do the whole thing again till 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Like,
are you getting any? Is this the counsellor that you're seeing? Are they giving you tools to approach those moments that you found useful?
I wouldn't necessarily say that she's given me tools. She's given me a platform where, and I feel like this is going to sound really like bad almost, but like friends and family and all the rest of it have an emotional investment in, and there's almost like some degree of like wanting to help or not judge.
It doesn't even seem real though. It doesn't seem like a real communication when they're telling you to do certain things. Yeah. Because they care about you as a person.
You know, you're always not getting a logical response.
Yeah.
You're getting a emotional response.
I hear that.
And
even if that's not the case, that's how you're going to perceive it.
Yeah, and do you know what? And to some degree, no matter who it is, whether it's friends, family, you, my mum, my dad, my brother, like whatever. Yeah. Because there is that level of like personal involvement. No matter how much you'll sit there and say X, Y, or Z, that is somewhat coming from a compassionate emotional side because of the relationship that we have. Whereas, while I'm not saying that the woman I speak to isn't compassionate, she doesn't know me. So she can listen and talk to me from a viewpoint of, I will offer you both sides of an argument, or I will say, do you know what, I agree with you on that, but have you thought about this? Whereas, would somebody else say, you know, are people likely to turn around and say, oh yeah, Dan, I agree with you on that? Most people, and again, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but, you know, having had conversations, you know, I speak a bit more openly about this now. I'm sat here talking about you, and God knows how many people are going to see this. But loads, mate. You want loads of viewers.
They're there. They're there.
You know, there's. Is somebody likely to turn around and say, do you know what, Dan, I understand, like, how you got to that point, or how it feels to want to end your life. And while they don't probably personally know, like a counsellor...
I think more people personally know.
But I mean, in terms of like a counsellor, for instance, if they've not been through it, but they've had the training, they've dealt with it, they've spoken to other people, they can see how that goes and what they can do to bring people back from that. Is very different to me speaking to my mum or my dad or brother or you or friends or whoever. You're including the friends, by the way. You're just saying.
I hear you. I hear you.
But yeah, like,
I'm glad.
You're not gonna. It's not a level playing field because there's too much vested interest in me as a person from whoever that I speak to.
Yeah. Whereas
it's almost like a doctor-patient, or like, you know, she refers to the people that she speaks to as clients. It almost takes the personal touch away slightly, but on the flip side of that, it means that she can be more open and she can be more understanding, and she can give viewpoints that other people might not necessarily give in fear of saying something that might make me feel shit. She'll say that, but then explore the reaction that she gets.
Yeah.
Rather than, so yeah, would I say that she's given me necessarily any tools? No. Has she given me a platform that I can speak openly and honestly about things? And have I spent times on the phone to her in floods of tears? Yes. Have I spent times on the phone to her having a bit of a laugh and a joke? Yeah. But I know that I can come away from that, and whether it's, I go, do you know what, that was quite a good session, or I come away from it like I did a couple of weeks ago and genuinely felt shit afterwards.
Yeah.
But then having time to digest why I felt shit and the stuff that we spoke about was good. Like, I would highly recommend, and in fact I can't recommend it enough, if anybody is in a situation where they feel like that, or they have other things going on, don't be afraid to, even if you don't want to go through your GP, like, I don't know what it's like in other places, but here in Hertfordshire, like, you can self-refer for counselling. It took me 6 months to get my counselling. It did. And I don't know whether some of that had, you know, lockdown was a part to play in that and all the rest of it. But from my experience, it was 6 months. And yeah, do you know what? I did go to the doctors and I got given antidepressants and I opened up to my parents and all the rest of it. But if you've got the opportunity or the chance or feel like it might be of benefit, do it. Because I've had nothing but, and even on the times when I've sat there and bawled my eyes out, I still feel like it's been a positive impact. And if it means that somebody else can have that, like, I can't recommend it enough. Like, genuinely, like,
that's amazing.
People, like, look into it. If you don't want to, if, you know, your local health authority or whatever, like, I'm pretty sure there's self-referral schemes all over the place. So. You know, the Samaritans, there's lots of people that are out there that will want to support. And it's weird, I told my counsellor yesterday that, you know, I've started my own podcast and you're doing I'm sat here doing yours now. And she said, like, men talking about mental health and talking about the fact that they have counselling and all the rest of it, she said, you know, from her experience, lots of her male clients, loads of people, like, their friends and family have no idea that they're going through counselling. Yeah. None at all. Whereas probably 95% of her female clients do. Yeah. And it is a big stigma, I think, you know, men's mental health, and that's not to rule out to say that women don't have, you know, a shit time of it. Of course they do, and it's, you know, it's just as important. But I didn't know how or where to turn or what to do. Yeah. And yeah, like, definitely for sure, like, even if you're skeptical of whether you think it will help, if you can do it through the NHS, which is what mine's through, it doesn't cost you anything. It's 50 minutes out of your week. And if you get even the smallest amount of benefit from it, do it.
Well, powerful stuff. All of that good stuff. Powerful stuff.